Good afternoon, family and loved ones. What a blessing it is to be here with you. Celebration of church life. I'd like to address or I was asked to speak to the AAILT, which is the African American Intercultural Leadership Team. In 2018, the Bishop Board received a final report from the Strategic Task Force that identified, among other things, the need for LMC to make racial and cultural reconciliation a priority moving forward. So in 2019, LMC engaged Bishop Ertel to conduct an assessment of LMC's intercultural development. That work pointed to the need for extensive work to increase intercultural competence in LMC. And of course, we know when 2020 came in, it came in with a real blast of things that began to take place with COVID, and then of course with some racial things that happened. And if many of you, if you don't know, you know now the story of George Floyd. How a police was on the man's neck. The man couldn't breathe, said he couldn't breathe. And of course, we all know George Floyd died. So in light of some of the things that has happened in our world and the great divide that we now experience, even within the Church of Jesus Christ, because of differences, this conversation continued as far as a need to establish a group, and the group is the group of African American leaders came together, including me, to hear about the LMC experience. And those conversations led to the formation of the AAILT, African American Leadership Team, which is helping LMC work through and carry this work forward. When we consider the purpose of the AAILT, again, it's a coalition of African American leaders dedicated to support mentoring, leadership development, coaching, and influence and collaboration of the African American constituents and the credentialed leaders within the mission and ministry of LMC. So the AAILT represents a group of pastors, bishops, and lay leaders of African American descent within LMC, who speak primarily to the issues at hand that we are facing, and also for the inclusion, of course, of all people of color as we work towards developing this ministry. And the perspective in all of this is that LMC would become more diverse in every area, governance, executive and financially, and the ministry within the ministry systems of the conference, as well as work towards the advocating for adequate resources, such as grants, contextual coaching for African American leaders and pastors and their related ministry. So again, what we have done in coming together, we are trusting God and believing God for great things to take place within this ministry, AAILT, that would begin with, again, the primary focus is the African Americans, but however, we're not looking to stay there. We're going to go across interculturally, because we want this ministry, again, the racial reconciliation, the systemic racism that we're dealing with in our world. What we want to do is, in reference to LMC, we want to make sure that we are intentional in confronting these issues that we may have even among ourselves. So we're trusting and believing, God, that this thing will go beyond just the African American churches to all the churches of color and whether Hispanic, whether African, whether Vietnamese, whether Griffin or whatever the case may be, and even to the point of our white brothers and sisters as well, that this thing goes across the board and impact our conference in such a way that our conference will lead. Please pray for us as we pursue God's purpose and his will in what he has called us to do. Blessings to you.
I'm Hyacinth Stevens, and I'm a part of the New York City LMC district. Part of my ministry is to work with the congregations in New York City. Since September, I've been working with LMC's Bishop Board, CEC, and staff on the Intercultural Development Inventory. The Intercultural Inventory, a short way of saying it, is the IDI. Why the Intercultural Inventory for LMC? The Intercultural Development Inventory is a tool that is used to assess how well we address, communicate, and work around difference when it comes to culture. As LMC, it's an important value that we function as a diverse fellowship of congregations, working together, serving together, being missional together. Diversity is about who are the different people that make up our fellowship. But intercultural and intercultural competency is about who. It's not about just who, but it's about how. Diversity is represented all throughout our conference, and so is culture. We're all carriers of culture, but how we express our culture in the way that we work and serve and worship and build faith communities together will be different based on our culture, our cultural narrative. And the IDI helps us explore and identify the cultures that we are most comfortable with, as well as the cultures that we are least comfortable with. And how do we work at bridging that gap so that we can be a better community of faith and fellowship together? As a conference, we are aware of our diversity. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, diversity is who, but culture is how. As a fellowship of congregations, we don't just want to be multicultural, which is diverse people represented together, but intercultural. And intercultural is a transformative process. It's the space where we acknowledge that there is difference among us because we're all fearfully and wonderfully made and unique as God has created us. But how do we work with our uniqueness without thinking that we have to just melt and be all the same? But the beauty of LMC is our difference. But how do we work at that? The IDI supports us in giving language to help us live into this Revelation 7:9 expression of faith, God's kingdom at work on the earth, understanding better not just our neighbors that live right next door, but also our neighbors that are abroad from diverse communities, carrying different cultures that may not be exactly the way that we were raised or what we're used to, but people of faith, people who want to be in discipleship, people who want to share the love of God, be missional and evangelistic. We want to keep working at the how. And that's what intercultural development helps us do, is look at how we practice our faith when there is difference, how we communicate appropriately when there is difference of culture and perspective. Continue to pray for LMC as we commit to this journey of working towards being more interculturally competent, having language and skills and resources to help us express our missional faith, to continue to connect as a diverse group of constituents, naming that, but practicing being intercultural, connected and woven together, being transformed by our difference, being transformed by learning to love together, worship together, and serve together. We invite you once again to continue to pray for this very important and valuable work at LMC.